For many men, relationships slowly become exhausting not because intimacy is difficult, but because of the position they unconsciously place themselves in. They lean forward emotionally long before safety or stability exists. They explain their intentions repeatedly, adjust their behavior to avoid conflict, and stay alert to every emotional shift. Over time, this constant vigilance turns connection into labor. Instead of experiencing the relationship, the man manages it. His attention is always outward, monitoring reactions, reading tone, and trying to prevent distance before it appears. From this posture, nothing feels neutral. A delayed reply feels loaded. A short message feels dismissive. Silence feels like rejection. Small changes in mood are interpreted as warnings. His nervous system stays activated, scanning for emotional threats. Even moments of closeness don't fully relax him, because they feel temporary and fragile. He enjoys them while bracing for their disappearance. This internal tension builds quietly until relationships start to feel draining rather than nourishing. What makes this especially difficult is that much of this effort looks like care on the surface. He listens, he shows up, he accommodates. Yet underneath, his emotional balance depends on how the relationship is going. His peace becomes conditional. When things are good, he feels grounded. When they shift, he spirals inward, questioning himself, replaying conversations, and trying to fix what may not even be broken. Over time, this creates a subtle resentment. He feels tired without knowing why. He starts believing relationships are complicated or demanding. But the exhaustion does not come from loving another person. It comes from abandoning his own emotional center and placing it in someone else's hands. When a man lives this way, connection stops feeling natural. It becomes something he must maintain, protect, and constantly earn, and no relationship can thrive under that weight. The shift begins the moment a man stops trying to secure emotional certainty from outside himself. When he no longer leans forward seeking reassurance, the entire dynamic changes. This change is often misunderstood as pulling away, but it is nothing of the sort. It is the return of emotional balance. The man is no longer positioning himself as someone who needs the relationship to feel stable. Instead, he stands firmly in the understanding that he will be fine whether things deepen or fade. That inner certainty is what defines nonchalance. Nonchalance is not emotional withdrawal and it is not indifference. It does not mean pretending not to care or suppressing desire. It means that care is no longer mixed with fear. A nonchalant man can feel interest without urgency, attraction without anxiety, and affection without attachment to outcome. His emotions move, but they do not control him. Because of this, his presence feels calm rather than charged. There is no hidden agenda behind his attention, no silent demand for reassurance. When a man reaches this state, pressure dissolves from the interaction. Conversations become lighter. Silence loses its threat. Time between responses no longer carries meaning that needs to be decoded. He allows things to unfold instead of trying to guide them into safety. This creates space, and space is essential for attraction. Attraction cannot grow when it is monitored, protected, or forced. It needs freedom to rise and fall naturally. From this place, the man's behavior becomes consistent without being rigid. He shows interest because he wants to, not because he is afraid of losing momentum. He engages without chasing and steps back without resentment. The power of nonchalance lies in this quiet self-trust. When a man knows he will be okay either way, his energy changes completely, and that change is felt long before it is understood. Emotional pressure is rarely spoken about directly, but it is almost always felt. Women sense it not through words, but through energy. It shows up in how quickly a man reacts, how much his tone changes based on her responses, and how closely his mood tracks her attention. Even when his behavior is polite, caring, or generous, there is often an invisible weight attached to it. That weight comes from expectation. His effort is not simply offered, it is leaning towards something in return. This pressure is not created by intention. Most men are not trying to burden anyone. They are simply seeking stability, clarity, or reassurance. But when a man places that emotional responsibility on a woman, she feels it immediately. She becomes aware, often subconsciously, that her responses regulate his emotional state. A warm reply lifts him. A delay unsettles him. A shift in tone causes him to recalibrate. Over time, this creates discomfort, not because she is unkind, but because no one wants to feel responsible for someone else's emotional balance. Attraction struggles to exist in this environment. When emotional effort is tied to anxiety, it feels heavy rather than inviting. Instead of freedom, there is obligation. Instead of curiosity, there is pressure to respond correctly. Even appreciation becomes complicated because it feels expected rather than earned. This is why men who try harder often feel less desired. Their effort is real, but it is loaded. Nonchalance removes this weight. When a man no longer needs a specific outcome to feel okay, his energy softens. His attention becomes clean. There is no emotional debt attached to his presence. He can care without gripping, offer without demanding, and engage without needing validation. That absence of pressure creates relief. In that relief, attraction has room to reappear, not because the man changed tactics, but because he removed the emotional burden that was quietly pushing it away. Before nonchalance, a man's inner world is noisy. His mind is constantly active, interpreting signals and assigning meaning where none may exist. A short reply feels intentional. A delayed message feels like a warning. A change in tone becomes something to analyze. He replays conversations, wonders what he should have said differently, and tries to predict emotional shifts before they happen. Because he is always reacting, he is never fully present. His attention is split between the moment and the imagined consequences of it. This constant interpretation pulls him out of his body and into his head. Instead of responding naturally, he calculates. He adjusts his words, his timing, even his personality to avoid upsetting the balance. What he believes is attentiveness slowly turns into self-erasure. And although his behavior may appear calm or accommodating, internally he is bracing himself. Women feel this as instability, not because he is dramatic, but because his emotional center is moving too much. When nonchalance enters, the first change is silence inside the mind. The need to interpret fades. He no longer treats every interaction as a signal that needs decoding. A pause is just a pause. A shift is just a shift. He notices, but he does not attach his worth or safety to it. Instead of anticipating emotional danger, he allows reality to show itself. From this grounded state, his responses slow down. He listens more than he explains. He answers instead of overcorrecting. He allows conversations to breathe without rushing them toward reassurance or clarity. This stillness alters how he is experienced. His presence feels steady. There is no frantic energy beneath his words, no urgency leaking through his tone. By stepping out of reaction, he becomes anchored. He no longer tries to manage emotions that are not his. He simply shows up as he is, grounded in himself. That grounded presence is not dramatic or impressive, but it is rare. And it quietly changes everything about how connection unfolds. Before nonchalance, a man lives in reaction mode. His attention is constantly scanning for meaning. He studies messages for tone, timing, and implication. A short reply feels dismissive. A delay feels intentional. A change in energy triggers questions he can't stop asking. His mind stays busy, trying to predict what comes next so he can adjust himself accordingly. This constant interpretation pulls him out of the present moment. Instead of being grounded in who he is, he becomes absorbed in managing impressions and emotional outcomes. Because he is always reacting, he never fully settles. Even when things are going well, his calm feels fragile. He is already preparing for the next shift, the next test, the next moment where he might need to explain or repair something. This creates inner instability. On the surface, he may look attentive and thoughtful, but underneath, his nervous system is activated. Women feel this as tension. Not obvious tension, but a subtle lack of grounding. It feels like a man who is emotionally present, yet not fully anchored. When nonchalance enters, this reactive loop breaks. He stops assigning meaning to every fluctuation. He notices changes without immediately responding to them.
Silence becomes neutral instead of threatening. Uncertainty becomes something to observe rather than fix. He allows time to pass without filling it with assumptions. This shift brings him back into his body and into the moment. His presence slows. His words become simpler. His energy steadies. From this grounded place, he no longer chases clarity through reaction. He allows clarity to reveal itself through behavior over time. That stillness changes the entire dynamic. He feels calmer, and that calm is felt by others. Not because he withdraws, but because he is no longer emotionally scattered. He becomes someone who can stand inside uncertainty without losing himself, and that grounded presence is deeply stabilizing. Many men believe effort is the key to attraction, but they misunderstand how effort is felt. Effort itself is not the issue. Anxiety attached to effort is. When a man tries too hard to secure outcomes, his actions carry emotional weight. His invitations feel loaded. His attention feels urgent. Even his kindness can feel like it is asking for something in return. This turns effort into pressure, and pressure quietly erodes attraction. Nonchalance changes the quality of effort without reducing it. A nonchalant man still initiates, plans, and shows interest, but his actions come from desire rather than fear. He is not trying to lock something in or prevent something from slipping away. His effort feels clean because it is not tied to his self-worth. If his interest is met, he enjoys it. If it is not, he accepts it without spiraling. This emotional independence changes how his effort is received. When effort is free of anxiety, it feels intentional instead of needy. His presence feels chosen, not demanded. He does not rush to escalate intimacy to feel secure. He does not overcorrect when things feel uncertain. He allows space without interpreting it as loss. This creates an atmosphere where attraction can grow naturally rather than being negotiated. Before nonchalance, a man's inner world is loud and restless. His attention is constantly pulled outward, trying to interpret what each interaction means. He listens not just to words, but to tone, timing, and subtext. A pause becomes a signal. A shorter reply becomes a warning. His mind fills in gaps with imagined meaning, usually negative, because uncertainty feels unsafe. Even when nothing is wrong, he is bracing for something to go wrong. This keeps him in a perpetual state of reaction. Because he is always reacting, he never feels grounded. His emotional state rises and falls based on what he perceives from her. When things feel good, he relaxes briefly. When they shift, his nervous system activates again. He tries to regain balance by adjusting himself, saying more, explaining intentions, checking in, or subtly changing behavior to restore connection. From the outside, this can look attentive or considerate. Internally, it feels unstable. He is not present in the moment, he is managing it. When nonchalance enters, that internal noise quiets. He stops assigning meaning to every small fluctuation. He notices changes, but he does not immediately respond to them emotionally. Silence no longer demands interpretation. Distance no longer feels like danger. Instead of anticipating reactions, he waits for reality to show itself. This waiting is not passive, it is grounded. He trusts himself enough to let things unfold without interference. That grounded presence changes everything. His words slow down. His reactions soften. He listens without preparing emotional defenses. He responds instead of reacts. This steadiness is felt immediately, even if it cannot be explained. It creates a sense of calm around him. Not because he controls the situation, but because he is no longer controlled by it. And that calm becomes the foundation for real connection to grow. Many men assume effort itself is what creates attraction. They believe that planning more, explaining more, and showing more interest will secure connection. What they miss is the emotional tone beneath that effort. When effort is tied to anxiety, it carries an unspoken request: please respond, please reassure, please choose me. Even if the words are kind, the energy behind them feels urgent. Over time, that urgency becomes exhausting for both people. Nonchalance does not eliminate effort, it purifies it.
A nonchalant man still initiates conversations and plans time together, but his actions are no longer driven by fear of losing momentum. He does not rush to lock things down emotionally.
He does not escalate intimacy to calm his own uncertainty.
His effort feels relaxed because it is not trying to secure a result.
It is simply an expression of interest in the moment.
This changes how his attention is received. Instead of feeling like something that must be managed or reciprocated quickly, it feels optional and chosen.
His presence no longer asks for anything in return. If interest is returned, he enjoys it. If it is not, he does not collapse or overcompensate. He adjusts naturally, without resentment or drama. Women respond to this difference instinctively.
Effort without anxiety feels safe.
It feels confident without being performative.
It communicates that the man values connection, but does not depend on it for his sense of self.
This allows attraction to build organically rather than under pressure. The paradox is that when effort stops trying to guarantee an outcome, it becomes far more effective. Not because it is clever, but because it is emotionally clean. Emotional leadership is often misunderstood as control, dominance, or certainty. In reality, it is steadiness in the presence of fluctuation.
Emotions rise and fall naturally in any connection.
Interest shifts. Energy changes.
A man without nonchalance experiences these shifts as threats. He feels compelled to respond immediately, to fix, clarify, or stabilize what feels uncertain. His urgency communicates that movement is dangerous and must be corrected.
A man with nonchalance responds differently.
He notices changes without internal panic. When interest dips, he does not chase it.
When energy fluctuates, he does not mirror the chaos. He remains consistent with himself. His behavior adjusts calmly to reality rather than fighting it.
This does not mean he ignores what is happening.
It means he does not emotionally escalate it.
This steadiness creates a powerful contrast. While emotions move around him, he stays centered.
He listens without defensiveness. He pauses instead of reacting. He allows space without turning it into distance or punishment. That calm presence feels grounding.
It communicates strength without aggression and confidence without control.
Women often respond deeply to this without consciously realizing why. It feels safe to have emotions without managing someone else's reaction. It feels relieving to experience uncertainty without being pulled into emotional drama.
The man becomes a stable reference point, not because he dictates the dynamic, but because he does not unravel within it.
Over time, this emotional consistency builds trust. Not the fragile trust built on reassurance and promises, but the solid trust built on character. When a man remains steady regardless of emotional weather, he becomes someone others can relax around. And in that relaxation, attraction and respect naturally deepen. Before nonchalance, a man lives in reaction mode.
His attention is always scanning for signals, trying to interpret meaning where none may exist. A change in tone becomes a question mark.
A pause becomes a problem to solve.
His mind stays busy, running scenarios, preparing responses, adjusting behavior in anticipation of emotional shifts. Even when nothing is wrong, he is alert, as if something might be. This constant interpretation prevents him from being grounded in the moment. He is present physically, but emotionally he is always slightly ahead, trying to manage what comes next. Because he is always reacting, his inner state becomes unstable. His confidence rises and falls based on external feedback. When things feel smooth, he relaxes. When uncertainty appears, his nervous system activates. This instability is subtle, but it leaks into his behavior. His words carry urgency. His questions carry hidden concern. His silence feels tense rather than calm. Even acts of care feel reactive instead of natural. Women experience this not as kindness, but as emotional unpredictability. When nonchalance develops, this pattern breaks. The man no longer feels compelled to interpret every signal. He allows behavior to speak over time instead of forcing meaning out of moments. He responds instead of anticipates. His attention returns to the present rather than hovering over imagined outcomes. This grounded presence changes the entire emotional texture of interaction.
Silence becomes neutral. Pauses become space rather than threat.
From this place, the man feels stable regardless of emotional weather.
His reactions slow.
His words become simpler. His energy feels steady.
Women experience this steadiness as safety, not because he reassures them verbally, but because his emotional posture does not shift with every fluctuation. He becomes someone who can be felt rather than analyzed.
And that grounded presence creates a calm that effort alone never could.
Effort is often misunderstood as the primary driver of attraction, but effort alone is never what creates connection.
What matters is the emotional state attached to that effort.
When effort is fueled by anxiety, it carries a subtle demand. It asks to be noticed, rewarded, or returned.
Even when unspoken, that expectation changes how effort feels on the receiving end.
Instead of feeling chosen, it feels pressured. Instead of feeling warm, it feels heavy. Nonchalance separates effort from outcome.
A man can plan, initiate, and show interest without tying his sense of self to how it is received. His actions come from desire, not fear.
He does not rush to secure certainty or overcorrect when things feel unclear.
He enjoys positive responses without becoming dependent on them.
He notices distance without chasing it. This emotional independence allows his effort to land cleanly. When effort is free of anxiety, it feels deliberate rather than desperate.
His attention feels intentional, not constant.
His presence feels grounded, not clingy. Women respond to this because it allows them to relax.
There is no need to manage his emotions or protect his expectations. His interest is clear, but it is not consuming.
This is why nonchalance does not reduce romance. It refines it.
The man still shows up, but he does not overextend. He still cares, but he does not cling. He allows momentum to build naturally rather than forcing it forward. That pacing creates tension without stress. Attraction grows not because he is doing less, but because his effort is no longer carrying emotional weight that suffocates connection.
Emotional leadership does not come from control or dominance. It comes from steadiness. Relationships naturally fluctuate. Interest shifts.
Energy rises and falls. These movements are not tests in a conscious sense, but they reveal emotional structure. A man without nonchalance experiences these fluctuations as threats. He feels compelled to respond immediately, to fix, to stabilize, to pull things back to where they were. His urgency communicates insecurity, even if his words do not. A nonchalant man experiences the same fluctuations but does not react emotionally. He notices changes without panicking.
He does not punish distance, nor does he pursue it. He adjusts calmly, matching reality instead of fighting it.
His emotional posture remains the same regardless of external movement.
This consistency becomes a reference point.
While emotions move around him, he remains steady.
Women feel this steadiness deeply. It creates a sense of grounding that does not rely on reassurance or explanation.
It feels like strength without force. There is no attempt to control outcomes, only a willingness to allow them.
This is emotional leadership in its quiet form.
The man does not manage emotions, he contains himself.
Over time, this steadiness builds trust.
Not trust built on promises or intensity, but trust built on predictability of character.
His calm does not disappear when uncertainty appears. His presence does not change based on validation. That reliability allows attraction to deepen because it is no longer built on emotional spikes. It rests on consistency.
And consistency without need is what makes a man feel safe, solid, and difficult to replace. Nonchalance acts as a form of self-protection that many men never realize they need.
Without it, emotional investment often outpaces reality.
A man gives too much too early, offering time, attention, and emotional energy before alignment has been established. When the connection falters, he feels confused and depleted. His self-worth becomes entangled with someone who has not earned that level of access. When a man becomes nonchalant, he naturally paces himself. He does not withhold, but he discerns.
He allows interest to grow instead of forcing it. He observes behavior over time instead of idealizing potential. This protects him from chasing uncertainty and from attaching to mixed signals. His standards rise quietly, not from ego, but from self-respect. Women sense this restraint. They feel when a man is not afraid to walk away from what does not meet him. This does not make him cold. It makes him clear. His boundaries are not announced, they are embodied. He does not argue for effort. He responds to what is present. If interest is mutual, he stays. If it fades, he steps back without resentment. This filtering effect simplifies his emotional life. Dynamics that rely on imbalance fall away. Connections that are genuine move closer. He stops negotiating for consistency and stops waiting for people to decide. In doing so, he preserves his energy and his dignity. Nonchalance does not make his world larger, but it makes it cleaner. And in that clarity, he finds peace that effort alone never provided. Before nonchalance, a man's inner world is rarely quiet. His attention is constantly pulled outward, tracking signals, interpreting pauses, and assigning meaning to small changes. A delayed response becomes a question mark. A shift in tone becomes a problem to solve. He feels as if he must stay emotionally alert to prevent something from slipping away. Because he is always reacting, he is never fully grounded. His mind stays one step ahead of the present moment, trying to predict outcomes instead of experiencing what is actually happening. This reactive state slowly erodes his sense of stability. He begins to live in interpretation rather than reality. Instead of responding to what a woman does, he responds to what he thinks it might mean. This creates internal chaos. Even when interactions are positive, he cannot relax because his nervous system has learned that stability is temporary. He is bracing for change rather than rooted in himself. When nonchalance develops, this constant monitoring stops. He no longer assigns emotional weight to every signal. He notices shifts, but he does not personalize them. Silence becomes neutral instead of threatening. Uncertainty becomes tolerable instead of urgent. He lets moments pass without rushing to fix them. This does not make him passive. It makes him present. From this grounded state, his behavior naturally changes. His responses slow down, not out of strategy, but because there is no internal pressure driving them. He speaks from calm instead of anticipation. He listens without preparing emotional defenses. Women experience this as stability. Not excitement, not intensity, but something rarer, emotional steadiness. And that steadiness creates trust, because it signals that this man is not being moved around by every emotional fluctuation. He is standing somewhere solid, and others can feel it. Many men believe effort alone creates attraction. They plan more, text more, explain more, and show up more, hoping consistency will be rewarded. What they miss is that effort attached to anxiety feels very different from effort offered freely. When a man is emotionally invested beyond what has been earned, his actions carry an unspoken request. His presence is no longer just presence. It is a bid for reassurance. Nonchalance separates effort from outcome. A man can still initiate, still show interest, still invest time and energy, but none of it is driven by fear of losing momentum. He is not performing to secure a response. He is acting because it aligns with who he is. This distinction matters more than most realize. Women feel when attention is chosen rather than demanded. When effort is free of anxiety, it feels light. There is no urgency behind it, no pressure to reciprocate immediately. A date invitation feels like an invitation, not a test. A message feels like interest, not monitoring. Even silence feels safe, because it is not being used as leverage or read as rejection. This is why nonchalance does not reduce effort. It refines it. The man stops overcorrecting. He stops giving more when uncertainty appears. He allows effort to match reality rather than fantasy. If interest is mutual, it grows naturally. If it is not, he does not try to compensate with more energy. From the outside, this looks like confidence. From the inside, it feels like peace.
His actions come from alignment instead of fear, and that calm consistency makes his presence feel intentional rather than desperate. Fluctuation is a natural part of human connection. Interest rises and falls. Energy shifts based on mood, timing, and circumstance. Most men struggle with this because they interpret fluctuation as danger. When a woman pulls back slightly, they feel compelled to restore balance. They explain more, chase reassurance, or escalate emotionally to stabilize the connection. A man with nonchalance experiences these moments differently. He notices the shift, but he does not react emotionally. He does not rush to correct it or punish it. He simply adjusts his own investment to match what is real. If energy lowers, he gives space without resentment. If it rises, he engages without losing himself. His internal state remains steady regardless of what is happening externally. This steadiness is often mistaken for emotional distance, but it is the opposite. It is emotional leadership without control. He is not trying to manage anyone's feelings. He is managing himself. That self-regulation creates a sense of safety because it removes volatility from the interaction. There is no emotional whiplash, no sudden swings driven by fear. Women respond to this more than they consciously realize. A man who does not unravel during uncertainty feels grounding. He becomes a stable reference point rather than another source of emotional noise. Over time, this steadiness earns respect, not because it is impressive, but because it is rare. Instead of escalating tension, conflict slows down. Instead of arguments growing louder, they lose momentum. The man listens without defensiveness and speaks without urgency. This calm presence allows emotions to settle rather than collide, creating space for genuine connection instead of reactive drama. Nonchalance acts as a quiet form of self-protection. Without it, men often overinvest before a connection has proven itself. They give access to their time, attention, and emotional energy freely, hoping appreciation will follow. When it doesn't, they feel confused and drained. Their self-worth becomes entangled with someone who has not yet shown consistency. When a man becomes nonchalant, he does not stop giving. He starts pacing himself. He allows interest to build rather than forcing intimacy. He observes how a woman shows up over time instead of projecting potential onto her. This pacing protects him from false momentum and emotional burnout. Women sense this discernment. They feel when a man is not afraid to walk away, not because he is threatening to, but because he genuinely can. That quiet independence changes the dynamic. His presence feels optional, not obligatory. His attention feels valuable because it is not automatic. Nonchalance also filters relationships naturally. Women who thrive on emotional imbalance or constant reassurance lose interest. Women who value clarity, presence, and mutual effort move closer. The man's world becomes smaller, but stronger. He spends less time chasing uncertainty and more time engaging with what is real. This protection extends beyond dating. His nervous system stays regulated. He no longer absorbs emotional inconsistency as personal failure. He recognizes misalignment without internal collapse. Over time, this preserves his energy and sharpens his standards without effort. He does not become closed off. He becomes selective. And that selectivity is not rigid. It is calm, grounded, and rooted in self-respect. Clarity is the greatest gift nonchalance provides. When a man stops trying to control outcomes, patterns reveal themselves quickly. Women who are genuinely interested move toward him without being pulled. Women who enjoy attention without intention drift away when pressure disappears. This sorting happens naturally, without confrontation or manipulation. Without nonchalance, men often stay stuck in ambiguity. They negotiate for effort, rationalize inconsistency, and chase mixed signals. They invest months trying to stabilize something that was never aligned. With nonchalance, this confusion fades. The man responds to behavior rather than hope. He adjusts calmly instead of clinging. Rejection also changes shape. It no longer feels like a verdict on his worth. It becomes information. Timing, misalignment, or uncertainty are seen clearly for what they are.
Because he does not collapse emotionally, he retains dignity. That dignity matters more than persuasion ever could. Endings become clean instead of dramatic.
There is no need for excessive closure or emotional bargaining. He accepts reality without resistance, and that acceptance leaves no emotional residue.
Women feel this too.
Even when they leave, they remember how the man handled distance and rejection.
Calm acceptance leaves a deeper impression than emotional resistance.
Over time, this clarity saves years of emotional exhaustion. The man no longer lives in confusion or hope-driven narratives. He sees reality as it is and responds accordingly. His life becomes quieter, but it becomes honest. And that honesty creates space for connections that are mutual, stable, and real to grow without force.
Before nonchalance, a man's inner world is loud.
His mind is constantly interpreting, assigning meaning, and trying to predict emotional outcomes. He reads between the lines of messages, notices subtle changes in tone, and assumes every pause carries significance.
Instead of being present, he is mentally ahead, rehearsing responses and bracing for disappointment. This constant reactivity keeps him ungrounded.
Even when nothing is wrong, he feels like something might be, and that anticipation alone creates tension. Because he is always responding to perceived signals, he never settles into himself. His emotions rise and fall with the interaction. When attention is present, he relaxes. When it fades, he tightens. This instability is not always visible in his actions, but it is felt in his energy.
Conversations carry an undercurrent of urgency. His listening is mixed with evaluation. His calm feels temporary, dependent on reassurance rather than rooted in certainty.
When nonchalance develops, this internal noise quiets. The man no longer treats every interaction as information he must decode. He stops assigning emotional meaning to small fluctuations.
Silence becomes neutral. Delays become normal.
He allows space without rushing to fill it. This shift grounds him back into his body and his own rhythm instead of keeping him trapped in anticipation. From that grounded place, he responds instead of reacts.
His presence slows. He listens without scanning for danger. He speaks without needing immediate affirmation.
And because he is no longer emotionally chasing stability, his energy feels steady rather than tense. Women experience this as calm, not distance. The man hasn't become passive.
He has become centered.
And that grounded presence changes everything, because stability is felt long before it is consciously recognized.
Effort itself is not the problem in relationships. The problem is effort that is driven by fear.
When a man is anxious about outcomes, his effort carries weight. His attention is loaded with expectation. His generosity quietly asks for reassurance. His consistency seeks confirmation that he is chosen. Even when he does the right things, the energy behind them feels strained.
Nonchalance separates effort from anxiety. A nonchalant man still plans, initiates, and shows interest, but his actions are no longer attempts to secure emotional safety. He acts because he wants to, not because he fears losing momentum. His effort feels clean. It has no strings attached. If it is received warmly, he enjoys it. If it is not, he does not collapse or chase explanation. This distinction is subtle but powerful. Effort without anxiety feels intentional rather than desperate. It signals self-respect.
It communicates that his time and energy are chosen offerings, not bargaining chips.
Women respond differently to this because it removes pressure. There is nothing to manage, nothing to soothe, nothing to fix.
When a man is nonchalant, his attention feels like a gift rather than a demand. His presence feels steady rather than reactive. He does not rush to secure outcomes or lock emotional certainty in place. He allows things to unfold at their own pace. That patience creates ease. And ease, more than intensity, is what allows attraction to deepen instead of burning out quickly. Emotional fluctuations are a natural part of human connection. Interest shifts. Energy rises and falls. Attention moves. A man without nonchalance experiences these fluctuations as threats. When interest dips, he panics.
When response is slow, he assumes something is wrong. He tries to correct the dynamic, often by explaining more, giving more, or pushing for reassurance.
A man with nonchalance does something very different. He notices the shift without reacting emotionally. He doesn't punish or withdraw dramatically, but he also doesn't chase.
He adjusts his investment calmly. He mirrors reality instead of fighting it.
If energy is high, he engages.
If it softens, he allows space.
This steadiness communicates emotional leadership without control. He is not trying to dominate the dynamic or manage her feelings. He is simply staying aligned with himself.
That consistency feels grounding. It creates a sense of safety because his emotional posture does not change based on momentary uncertainty. Women respond to this steadiness instinctively.
It feels reliable without being restrictive. It feels strong without being aggressive. The man becomes a stable reference point rather than another emotional variable.
Over time, this calm presence builds trust. Not trust based on promises or reassurance, but trust based on consistency of character. He doesn't unravel when things feel uncertain, and that quiet resilience speaks louder than any attempt to prove confidence. Nonchalance also serves as protection.
Without it, many men overinvest emotionally before a connection has proven itself.
They give too much access too early, hoping that generosity will create security. When it doesn't, they feel drained, confused, or resentful.
Their self-worth becomes entangled with someone who has not earned that level of influence.
When a man becomes nonchalant, he naturally paces himself.
He still gives, but he gives in proportion to what is real.
He does not attach his identity to potential or fantasy. He watches behavior over time. This protects his energy and his sense of self. Women sense this boundary. They feel when a man is not afraid to walk away from inconsistency.
That independence changes how seriously he is taken. Not because he threatens absence, but because his presence is not guaranteed. He is there by choice, not by need.
This dynamic filters relationships quickly. Women who thrive on emotional imbalance drift away.
Women who value clarity and mutual effort move closer.
The man stops chasing uncertainty and starts selecting alignment.
His world becomes smaller, but stronger. And that strength comes from self-respect rather than strategy. Clarity is one of the greatest benefits of nonchalance. When a man no longer tries to control outcomes, behavior speaks for itself.
He stops decoding mixed signals and starts observing patterns. He doesn't negotiate for effort or explain inconsistency away. He allows people to show him who they are. This clarity prevents emotional exhaustion.
Women who are interested naturally move closer.
Women who enjoy attention without intention drift away. There is no drama in this sorting. It happens quietly and efficiently. The man no longer wastes months trying to stabilize uncertainty. Rejection also changes. It no longer feels like a verdict on his worth.
He understands that hesitation often has nothing to do with him.
Because he does not collapse under rejection, he retains dignity. Endings become clean instead of chaotic. Even women who walk away remember how he handled uncertainty. Calm acceptance leaves a deeper impression than emotional resistance. Respect grows quietly. Not loud admiration, but internal respect.
The kind that lingers over time and reshapes comparison.
Nonchalance doesn't make relationships predictable. It makes them honest.
Over time, nonchalance stops being something a man practices and becomes who he is. His emotional center shifts inward.
He no longer scans for validation or permission to feel safe.
His life moves according to internal rhythm instead of external reaction.
Women feel this immediately. Conversations feel lighter. Presence feels calmer. There is no urgency leaking through his tone. He is not trying to extract reassurance from the moment. He is simply present. And presence without hunger changes the emotional temperature between two people. He reconnects with himself. His focus sharpens. His standards rise naturally.
He engages without dissolving into the connection.
Relationships stop feeling like something he must manage and start feeling like something he participates in.
In the end, women were never hard. The difficulty came from emotional imbalance. When a man learns to care without clinging, to engage without chasing, and to stand without hardening, connection becomes natural.
Nonchalance does not make him distant. It makes him whole.
And from that wholeness, relationships stop being a struggle and start unfolding on their own.